Some of you who regularly watch my videos may be aware that I'm a boxing fan. Well, I've been watching a series of Mike Tyson videos online over the past few hours, and sort of his early fights from the late 80s, a period where he was a very powerful force in boxing. And a few things struck me. I mean, I sort of knew these things before, but they particularly struck me as I was watching these fights, looking at the comments section below. Basically, you know, even to non-boxing fans, Tyson is a very famous figure. If you say to a non-boxing fan, name a boxer, there's a strong chance he is the person they would name. He is probably the most famous boxer since Muhammad Ali. In fact, I think there's a little question about that. Not just for his explosive power in the ring, but also for his controversies outside it. I don't think he's necessarily the best boxer since Muhammad Ali, but he would absolutely be in the top 10 best boxers of modern times. But that's not really the issue I want to talk about. This isn't about Tyson's legacy. He left the ring in 2005, for those of you who don't know. I intend to make a separate video about Mike Tyson. This is more about his opponents, specifically his underdog opponents. I'm not talking about big names like Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, guys like that. I'm talking more about the underdogs. Guys like James Buster Douglas, Peter McNeeley, I'm just at the moment actually Jesse Ferguson. Guys like that. One thing that strikes me is Tyson fans, presumably Tyson fans, really show a lot of disrespect to these underdogs. Things like so and so is a bum, so and so looks ridiculous, so and so is this, is that, is the other. Now this really bothers me, because I'm thinking, really, how many of these people have stepped into a ring with Mike Tyson themselves? I mean, even if Tyson KO'd some of these guys in the first round, you have to respect any man who has the courage to step into a ring with Mike Tyson. I mean, let's just be clear about this. We're talking about the most feared heavyweight probably of modern times, with the possible exception of the Klitschko's. But really, Tyson is a force of nature, or was a force of nature in his prime. So for people to ridicule and mock the man who stepped into a ring with him, it really bothers me. Yeah, Tyson, it was very one-sided fights. Tyson destroyed them. And from a pugilistic point of view, yeah, they were destroyed. But from a character point of view, to try and attack those guys as being so-called bums, it really pisses me off, because for one thing, a lot of them were pretty decent fighters in their own right. Put them up against anyone else and they'd be pretty decent fighters. It's just that Tyson was such a powerful fighter, so almost anyone was dwarfed compared to Tyson, except in his later career when he was beaten by guys like Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis. The first defeat, of course, came against James Buster Douglas in Tokyo. There's a few things I want to say about that. Tyson fans like to make excuses for that loss. They say, oh, Tyson's head was in the wrong place, he was distracted by management problems, he was messing around with prostitutes the night before. They'll find any excuse for it. But in the end of the day, it was a boxing match, and James Buster Douglas won. If Tyson was badly prepared, that was his own fault. So as far as I'm concerned, he's a professional boxer, there's no excuses. Look at the sort of barriers that Buster Douglas had to face. His mother had just died. His wife, as far as I know, was terminally ill. He himself was facing serious illness. I forget the exact condition, but he wasn't only the underdog, he was facing enormous emotional barriers, but he went in with a fixed mindset as the underdog, and he won. That was a real case of Rocky. I mean, the only thing about it is that Buster Douglas didn't really follow that up. He got beaten by Evander Holyfield in the next fight, and that's a bit of a tragedy. But when Tyson fans make excuses for that, what I say is, just give Douglas some credit. Just accept that on that night your man lost. Instead of making excuses for him, just give Douglas some credit. So Tyson fans annoy me sometimes when they sort of treat him like this god who is above criticism. And they almost dehumanize Tyson in that sense. In boxing, no man is undefeatable. Even guys who had a record where they were never defeated, you could put them against another fighter in another time in history and they may well be defeated. Take Marciano, take Calzaghe, take those guys who were never defeated. Yes, they occupy a unique position, but they could well be defeated in another era. And bear in mind, and this is no disrespect to Marciano or Calzaghe, I've got a lot of respect for both guys, but Marciano had 49 fights, Calzaghe had 46. That's not an exceptional number of fights when you look at some of the fighters of old. Jimmy Wilde, the great Jimmy Wilde, had something like 90 fights before he was defeated. 90 fights at least. So in boxing you have to look at a wide range of things. But anyway, back to Tyson. Again, there's a video circulating online. It shows this interview with Peter McNeeley. Granted, the interview does look a little bit ridiculous. It looks like it's hard to know what really he's talking about. It's an emotional interview. But, I saw a lot of guys under there just bad-mouthing McNeeley, and I'm thinking, fuck you. Really, fuck you. This is a young man, 26 years old at the time, who stepped into a ring with the best heavyweight in the world. Yes, he was beaten badly, but if you look at that fight, he could have went a lot longer. It was McNeeley's own cornermen who stopped the fight. McNeeley clearly had heart in that fight. He was prepared to fight on. No one could deny McNeeley's determination in that fight. And actually he had quite a good strategy. He came in with an aggressive style that is what Tyson usually used. So he used Tyson's own style. And it did look for a while that it was working. Then it looked to me like just bad luck, and he was hit by a hard knock by Tyson and he fell. But I honestly think McNeeley could have continued and it could have turned into a slugfest. Maybe he still would have been beaten, but he would have given Tyson something to think about. People read too much into the fact he was knocked down in the first round without looking at the fact, well, he could have went longer. He had the determination to go longer, and it was his own corner that pulled him out. So, the thing is, in the 90s, when that was at a time when Tyson had just been released from prison, if you look at the promotional posters, McNeeley wasn't even given a chance. The poster just shows Tyson and he's back. Tyson in big letters, McNeeley in small letters. You can't help thinking this is just another example of how frankly unfair the boxing world is. And as much as I love boxing, it's something that does make me uneasy. When you have a boxing match, a professional boxing match, anyone who's being honest will admit that it's not an equilibrium. It's really not. Because there's always an underdog. 90% of the time there's an underdog in a boxing match. Yeah, you might have two guys where the equilibrium's a little bit more balanced, like 40-60, but it's hardly ever a 50-50 situation. But when the promoters even turn against the underdog, I think that is grossly unfair. At least give people a chance. I know promoters will argue Tyson is the guy who will make the money, etc. But I think there's relevant situations today. Today it goes for Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather's a money machine. So it doesn't matter who fights Mayweather, Mayweather's going to be the man on the poster. Same thing. This fight I'm just watching now, the crowd's booing Ferguson, and maybe I'm naive, but I really don't get why. People are saying underneath, oh, he holds and fights, but so does a lot of fighters. I really don't get why there was that hostility to Ferguson. Maybe someone can explain that. If you're watching this video, maybe you can explain why was the crowd so hostile to Ferguson. Anyway, I don't like it. Whatever the justification is, it just... I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to make a video specifically about Tyson, but this is just to say, if you're one of those people that attacks Tyson's opponents, my question to you is, what have you done with your life? Have you ever stepped into a ring with Mike Tyson? Really? I mean, look, those guys, none of them were particularly bad fighters. They just happened to be facing one of the best of all time. In their own right, they were not bad fighters. And I guarantee you, they would pulverize a man on the street. They were professional boxers. They were tough guys. So don't take that away from them. Yes, they were destroyed in some cases by Mike Tyson, but come on, it's Mike Tyson. One of the hardest hitters in boxing history. One of the top heavyweights in boxing history. At least give these guys credit for being courageous contenders. I mean, you cannot deny any man willing to step into a ring with Mike Tyson at that time, say between 1985 and 1995, you cannot take away that man's courage. You just can't. I mean, I believe that boxers are always courageous in a professional fight, but especially at that time, the guys who stepped into the ring with him. So I'm not saying they should be wrapped in cotton wool. I'm not saying sort of like don't go for Tyson. I'm saying this because I think it applies to fights today, whether it be Mayweather or anyone else. It just bothers me that some people could be so disrespectful when you can just guarantee they would never do it themselves. So to me, they're just pussies. Anonymous little losers hiding behind a computer screen. I don't big myself up. I don't say I can do it. In fact, I know I can't. If I stepped into a ring with Tyson, he would destroy me. So I don't disrespect the men who did. That's all. So, yeah, if you're a Tyson fan, well, that's my thoughts on that. I'm not saying, by the way, all Tyson fans do that. I'm sure there's Tyson fans who are respectful to his opponents, but I've noticed a lot of them aren't, and it does piss me off, because to me that really discredits the sport. As Oscar de la Hoya said, it doesn't matter if you're a low-level pro fighter who's only had a few professional fights and you've stepped into the ring for the 5th time, or you're a world champion who's defending your title for a 4th or 5th time. It doesn't matter. To step between those ropes, it takes guts. I 100% agree with Oscar de la Hoya, and I really wish more fans would take that logic. What can I say? Boxing's an ugly business. I'm not naive. I know it is. But that doesn't mean we have to just accept it and say, oh, well, that's the way it is, it's fine. It does bother me. I do think that fans should have some more respect. So, if you're calling Tyson's opponents bums, my question is, what have you done with your life? You've never stepped into a ring with Tyson. You've never fought for a world title. So my response would be, STFU. You know what I'm talking about.